Hey, what's up everyone? Welcome back to my YouTube channel. If you are a returning subscriber, thank you for tuning in again. So it's another video. Well, this one is not really beginner friendly. It's gonna be an intermediate tutorial on Nodejs with Express. So we're gonna be creating a blog API, like something similar to Twitter. So there won't be any front end. So I've got my Postman open here and I've created my folder called blog API and open VS Code. Right, cool. So the first thing that we need to do is we need to initialize our Node.js project by going npm init, and I'm just gonna say -y to accept everything, and let's just wait for that to create. Right, so yeah, so like I want to focus on folder structure here. Like I said, this is a more intermediate level video, so I'm gonna be talking about best practices and how to structure your Node Express application. Right, so this is our package JSON that got created by that last command that we ran, and I'm just gonna quickly change this to app.js, and we need to create a get ignore and ignore node modules. Save that, and we need to install a few dependencies. Let me just increase this font here a bit. Oh, that's too much. Yeah, so we need to install a couple of dependencies. Now of course the first dependency or the first library that we need to install is Express, because that's what we're going to be using to build our API. And we need Mongoose as well, because we're going to be using MongoDB to store our data, and we need bcrypt. So this library will help us with encrypting and decrypting our password, and we also need JSON Web Token. Yeah, this is the JWT library. I'm sure you know what JWT is, so I'm not gonna dive deep into that. So let's install these. So as we code, we will install more dependencies like as we need them. So for now I'm just gonna install these, because in this part of the video, like in this what do you call this, in this first video, I just want to focus on authentication. Right, cool. So we've got our dependencies installed. I need to install one more dependency called npm install -d. It's a dev dependency and it's nodemon. This will refresh our server every time we make changes and save. Right, cool. So now let's go ahead and create our folder structure now, and I'm going to explain everything as we go along. So we have our source folder. This is where our code lives, and inside here we need our call this API, and we also need our services. We need another folder called what do you call this, utils. So this is where our utilities will live, you know, your dates, your date generators and all that. And we also need another one called middleware. Yeah, and then inside API, put v1, This is the first version of the API, and under v1 we need to also have a folder for controllers. Controllers. Does controllers have 2 L's or 1 L? Yeah, 2 L's. Let's put 2 L's. And we also need our routes folder. Cool. So under controllers, we will have our controllers, and we need an index file that will export every controller under this folder. So let's create that file here. Let's call it index.js. The same for routes as well. Index.js. You will see this when we're actually building it. And then remember, we need our app.js file. So this is our root file. This is where our app will put app.js. Right, cool. So let's install Express. Sorry, let's bring in Express. Require Express. So one thing I forgot to install here is the .env library. So npm install .env. So we will use this to keep our secret codes, like our AP, our connection strings, our API keys. So let's bring that in. It's done installing. Require .env.config, because we're going to be using .env in this file, so we need to add this line of code here. We also need to bring in Mongoose. So in this file we use Mongoose to connect to the database. So require Mongoose. We also need to set our ports. So process.env.port, or let's use 5000. Then we need to initialize our app. Cool. So yeah, that's it. Now we need to tell the app to use express.json, because we need to bring in the body from the client, which is going to be Postman in our case, and then we need to connect to our database. So say mongoose.connect, and then we need to bring in our connection string. So that's going to be under the .env file. So .env and MongoDB. So here you'll type in your connection string. I'm not gonna type it on video, but you're gonna have to type in your connection string here. Like okay, so while we're still here, we also need to set our JWT secrets. You're gonna need this as well. Gonna type it in here, your own secrets, and we will need a JWT. Can't remember, do we need a JWT key? Yeah, but yeah, have this as well and type in your own key here. So you can create your own here just a random string, another random string here. But this here, the MongoDB connection string, you need to go to MongoDB. So I'm gonna be using the online version of MongoDB. Yeah, so just search on Google, search for cloud MongoDB, create an account there, a free account, and create a user. You'll get a connection string. That user will have a username and a password. Put that username and password in your connection string and paste it in here, and then save, and everything should work. Cool. So yeah, let's bring in that MongoDB. What did I call it? Yeah, I call it MongoDB. So let's bring it in here. So it's process.env.mongodb. And then we need to say use unified topology true. So this line of code is going to return a promise. Therefore, let me just close this for, yeah, it's going to return a promise. So we can say .then, and then callback function in here, and we also need to catch the error. Let me say console.error, the error. And once the database has been connected, once we've successfully connected to the database, we need to now start our app. So you're going to say app.listen, and you're going to listen to this port here. And then this is also going to run this callback function if everything runs correctly. And then I'm just going to say console.log API is running. Alright, cool. So I'm gonna pause the video and bring in my MongoDB connection string, paste it in here, save, and then come back to run the app. And if everything runs, if everything is correct, we should see this here printed in the terminal. Just one thing here. We need this. This is gonna be the key for JWT, and we don't need this, so delete that. Maybe in the upcoming videos we will add a JWT refresh secret for our refresh token, but for now I'm just gonna use this key here. So now remember, you can put anything you want here. You can put 1 2 3 4 5 6 and 8 and just save, or you can be creative, man. Just put anything here. This is gonna be your secret. You'll have to create it on your own, and yeah, but this here you will have to get it from MongoDB. Okay, so I've pasted my connection string. One last thing that we need to do, we need to add a script for Nodemon to run our app. So I'm just gonna call it dev. Yeah, I'm just gonna call this one dev, and the command here will be Nodemon. So our app is under the source folder, so it's gonna be Nodemon src app. Let's go ahead and save that, and let's say npm run dev. So it's gonna run the scripts here. Identifier exports has already been declared. Where line 2. Oh, express. Let's go ahead and save. Now if we save, you see Node1 refreshes our server. Now it's connecting to MongoDB and we are getting this here, app API is running, which means we've successfully connected to MongoDB first and then we've successfully launched the app. Right, cool. So let's go ahead and create our service first, our auth service. Let's create our auth. No, first we need to create our model. Sorry. Yeah, so we need one more folder here, models, and we need an index that will export our models to other folders. We also need a new file here, call it user.js. This is going to be our user model, which will then be saved in the database in MongoDB. So basically our schema. So let's bring in Mongoose. So Mongoose will help us to create our schema. And then let's go ahead and create our schema now. Const, I'm going to call it user schema is equals to new mongoose dot schema. Now we need to define our properties here, right? So in our case, a user will have a username, and let's set some rules here. The type is going to be string, and sorry, it's going to be required. Firstly, it's going to be true. And then in here is the message that we're going to pass to the client if they don't require a username. So it's going to please provide username. We also need a password. So I'm just going to copy and paste some stuff here. Password. And then I want to show you something else here. Gender. Yeah, let's do gender as well. But I want to allow for 3 genders only: male, female, and other. And if the client provides anything other than that, we need to throw an error or just send a message saying that the gender is invalid. So to do that, we need to create an enum here, and then the values that we are going to allow in an array. So male, female, and other. Then this message property, if they provide anything other than these 3, we need to then say value. So the value that they provided is not a valid gender. Right, I think this should work. Then we need to export our schema. Module.exports mongoose. mongoose.model, and then in a database we're going to save this as user, and the schema that will be mapped is user schema, the one that we created up here. Yep. Save. Now we need to come to the index under models, and import the user schema. Const user is equals to require user, and then we need to export it, module.exports. Now we need to export it like this because we're gonna be exporting multiple models here. So user is just the first one that we're gonna be exporting for now. Save. Now whenever we wanna use this model here, we'll just reference it from, we'll just get it from the index file, right? So the next thing that I wanna do is I wanna go ahead and create a auth service.js, right? So let's go ahead and say class auth service, and we need a constructor that will take in the user model that we just created, and we need to say this dot user is equals to the user that will get passed via the constructor. Now we need a register function, which is basically just adding the user, right? So we will say register. So register will take the body, right? The body will come from the client. So we'll take this body here, and we will destructure a couple of properties. We need the username, the password, and the gender. We are going to get that from the body. Now we need to create our user now. So the first thing that I want to do before creating a user, I want to hash this password here. We don't want to store the password as it is. We need to encrypt it. So I'm under utilities. I'm just going to create a file here and call it bcrypt.js. Right, so let me just go ahead and create everything that I'm gonna need. So the first thing that we need to do is we need to bring in bcrypt, require bcrypt, and then we need to create a function that will encrypt our password. All right, so it's going to be an asynchronous function. So async encrypt. Let me do it this way. So we're going to take in text here, which is just the password. Why is this? Okay, let me just do it like this. const encrypt equals to, it's going to be an asynchronous function that takes the text and we need to encrypt that text. Right, so const encrypted text, encrypted text is equals to big await, we need to await this bcrypt dot hash password hash the text, and the salt value is, I'm just gonna leave it at 10, and then we need to return the encrypted text. It's pretty simple if you ask me. It's just straightforward. Then we save. Now we need another function that will compare, like, you know, when you're logging in, you put in the password that you initially registered with, but now the database has this password stored, the encrypted one. So we need a function that will compare the two passwords, the original password and the encrypted one, to see if they match. Right, so let us create that function as well. I'm just going to call it compare, const compare, because it's also going to be an asynchronous function, async. So it's going to take the password, let me just call it this text, original text, and the encrypted text. Encrypted text, and cool. So let's say const results is so await decrypt bcrypt.compare, and then we need to pass in these values as they are here. Right, why is there an error? Okay, result. Then we need to check if everything went well. If result, so if this is true, we will return true. You know what? You can just return results. Return result. Now we need to export these two functions. Module.exports. We need to export encrypt and compare. Save that, there's no errors. So now we can go ahead and use these functions in our auth service. So let's come back here, we need to import them. Const, we need encrypt and compare from utils decrypt. Let's go ahead and save that. Right, so now we can go ahead and continue with our register function. So let's encrypt the password in encrypted password equals to encrypt, and encrypt takes the text, and in our case we're just gonna pass the password here. Now let's create our user and then save it. Now remember, this function here is asynchronous, so we need to await, and therefore we need to make this async. Right, save. Now we need to create our objects and pass it to the schema. Const let's call it new user. It's gonna be equals to. Right, so we're gonna say we're gonna pass username. We're gonna pass the password will be encrypted password, and then we're gonna pass the gender. Then we'll say return this dot user dot save and pass in the new user. Yeah, I think this should work. No, it should not, because this is an object and we need to create a new instance of a user. So let me just cut this and say new new this dot user. Yeah, we should say this dot user, and then we can pass this object in here. We don't need this, so this should work. We need to save the new user. Yeah, this should work. Let's go ahead and save. Now let's create the login function. Let me just remove some space here. Now again, we will use the compare function, which is asynchronous, so we will await it. So we need to make this function async as well. Login, it will take email and password. Right, so let's firstly find the user. Okay, so how do we do that? Const let me call this user. It's okay. User is equals to await this dot. Sorry, we're not taking in an email here. Remember now, we need to check the username. This .user .find one, just one-to-one record, and we need to get a user where the username is equals to the username that we're passing here. Right, so once we have that user, we need to get the hashed password, the encrypted password of this user, and compare it with the password passed by the client here. So let's go ahead and do that. Const is password correct? Is password correct? Await. Compare. Now we're using this function here, and this right, so this compare takes the text, which is the original password, right, and the encrypted one. So the here in our case, the original password is just password, and the encrypted one, user dot password. Right, so if is password correct, I'm just gonna return success, true, and the data I'm gonna pass just the user as it is, else the opposite. Let's go ahead and save that. Right, cool. So before I send the user to the controller, I just want to make sure that I hide the password. User dot password is equals to now, because we don't want to send that, we don't want to expose the password. So right at the end, let us export our function, our service, module.export auth service. Now we need an index for this as well, index.js. Auth service is equals to require and then we need to export it, module.export. We're gonna be exporting multiple services, so auth service. Cool stuff. Now I need to define my JWT functions, right? So when I come in here and JWT.js, and I'm gonna make use of the .env file. Remember, we've got our secrets in there, so I need to require it here. Require .env .config. Right, so now we're ready to use our .env file. Now we need to require our JSON Web Token library that we installed. So I'm just gonna call it JWT here. JWT is equals to require JSON Web Token, like this. Now we need to create our functions. So const, I'm gonna call this one verify token, and because this is gonna be a middleware, it will take the request, the response, and the next function. Semicolon here. Now let's go ahead and verify the token. The first thing, so the token will be passed in the headers, so we need to get the authorization header. It will be passed in the authorization headers, so we need to get that. Const, I'm gonna just call it barrier is equals to, so from the request we get headers, but we only want authorization, like so. And then we need to check if this is defined or not, if they did pass the authorization, if they did pass the JWT in the authorization under headers. So we need to say if type of barrier is not string, not equals to undefined, so if it's not undefined, we can go ahead and take the token, const token. So let me just show you this real quick. So under headers, the user will have, so there's going to be authorization, and they'll first put this here, barrier, and then the token will follow. So we only need this part, so we don't need the barrier, so we'll have to split. Token is going to be equals to barrier dot split. We're going to split the space, so whenever we see a space, we're going to split, and we only want the second part of the second element of the array, so that's going to be our JWT. Cool. So let's go ahead and now verify the token. So we'll use this JWT instance, JWT dot verify, pass in the token like so, and then we need the key now. Now the key is in the .env file, and I called it JWT key, if I'm not mistaken. Let me just double check. I called it JWT secret. Now I'm gonna tell you mine. So here you can do it this way, or you can just go ahead and pass your key here, like hello world, whatever key you want to pass, but mine is under the JWT file, so it's stored here. And then it's gonna be a callback function which will have the error and the data. Sorry, not like so. Right, so let's check if there's an error first. Say if if there's an error, we need to return response.status. We need to change the status. I think 401 is forbidden. I'm not sure, but go ahead and check that out. And .json. Now this is the JSON that we want to pass. If I want to pass success, false, and the error is going to be error.message. Right. Else, if there's no error, we want to say request data, adding a new property here called data, and a request, and we're just gonna assign it to the data that comes back from, which is just gonna be the the data that comes back from the JWT verify function here. So once we are done with that, we need to call the next function. Next. Okay, cool. So we need an else for here, and we can just send response dot status. I'm gonna call it 401 as well. .json. Success, false message. Please provide a token. Yeah, let's just leave it like this. Go ahead and save. Now we're done with this one, with verifying the token. Now we need another function to create the token. So I'm just gonna wait, where does this function end? Okay. Const create token. So this one, I'm not going to be using this as a middleware, but I'm just going to keep it here anyways under the JWT file. I know it's under middleware, but yeah, for simplicity, I'm just going to keep it here. So data. Why do I always do this? Alright, cool. So now we need to return JWT dot sign. Now payload. The payload is going to be our data, and then the secrets now is going to be the same as this one here. Sorry, process dot in nv dot, yeah, this is how you do it. The same thing here, and then we need to set the expiration. So these under the options here. So when will it expire? Expires in let's just put 1 year. Right, so we are done here. Now we need to export these functions. module dot exports. Yeah, we do need verified token. Verified token, and also create token. Save. Let me just quickly format everything nicely. Save here. Save as well. Cool. So now I guess we need let's create one more function that will help us check if the email exists or not, right? So under helpers, where do I have helpers? Under utils, let's create a file. Let me just call it checkers.js. So in here I want to create a function that will check if the email exists, right? So just gonna call it const check email exists, and it's gonna be an asynchronous one, and it's going to take email and the user. Const, let's look for a user. I'm just going to call it user like this. It's going to be equals to await. First of all, because we want to access the database, we need a try catch here. We need to modify this as well. So because we are trying to do something in the database, we need a try and catch block. But yeah, let me first finish with this, and then we'll edit the auth service one. Right, so let's get the user const. User is equals to await. And then we're going to call this user dot find one. Username exists, not email. We don't have an email, we've got a username and username as well here. Find one. Then we need to say where the username is the same as this one here. Then we need to check if this is not null, then we return true. Else we're just gonna return false. Then we need to module dot exports check if the username exists. Right, cool. So now let's modify this a bit. So we need a try and a catch block. Try and a catch block, and it's gonna be like so. And we need to bring everything here. Don't worry, we're gonna format this properly once I'm done modifying this file. And we need to do the same thing here. And this goes in here. Now let me format this properly. Format selection. Cool. So this will make sure that our application does not crash if like there's an error. Right, so save this. Now we need to go ahead and create the controller. So come in here, controllers. Okay, let's call this auth controller. Auth controller.js. Now we need to bring in a couple of functions. So I'm just gonna const. First of all, I'm gonna bring in this here, the checkers. We're checking if the username already exists or not. Require should be utilities, and we also need generate token. We called it create token. Require under middleware JWT. We also need our user schema. It should be under models. Now there's no need of saying user because we've got that index file which will export the user. We need our auth service as well. Yeah, auth service. It's going to be under services, and again remember we've got this index file which exports auth service, so we can just import it like this. Now we need to create an instance of our auth service and pass the user to the constructor, because remember the constructor is expecting a user, and it is this user that we're using to, you know, register, log in, and pretty much do everything here. So const auth service, just gonna call it auth service, is equals to new auth service, and then we need to pass this user like this. Now let's go ahead and create our controller. Class controller. Let's create the register function. Register. Now controllers will take the request and the response by default, and then we can first check if the username exists or not. If it doesn't exist, then we can go ahead and register the user. So we'll say if check username exists, and where are we getting the username? We're getting it from the body, and the body is in here, the request. So we'll just say request dot, you know what, let me just do it this way. I think it's much easier. Let me destructure everything. Say username, password. No, we won't be needing that. We'll just need the username from request dot body. So let's pass in the username here, and we are expecting a user as well. So this user document comes in here. Now we say if, remember this is an asynchronous function, so we need async here as well. Right, so before we even do anything, we need to check if the username exists. If the username exists, then we just need to say response dot status. What's the conflict one? 409, I think. Yeah, and then dot JSON, and we can say success. It's not true, it's false. False, and then let's pass the error. Username already exists. Now just make sure that here at this stage, or when you're registering or saving a user, make sure that you trim, or when you're comparing the usernames in here, make sure that you trim and set the case to lower, right? So that, because we might have the same usernames, but mine might begin with an uppercase and yours may begin with a lowercase, and according, like when JavaScript sees that, to it's not the same. So make sure that the cases are the same, and you trim your string so that this will work properly. Otherwise you will face issues. Cool. So let's do the else block here. Let's go ahead and add a user first. Const edit user, going to be equals to await auth service dot register, and register will take the body, so request dot body. Now remember that this let me just go back here. So it'll return a promise as well here, right? This will return a promise. So we can go ahead and use the then chain, but I don't like doing it that way. So I'm just gonna store the value in here, edit user, and then let's did we remove the password? Okay, looks like we didn't remove the password, so we need to make sure that we don't expose the password. So edit user dot password is equals to null. Right, now we need to generate a token and pass this as the payload. So const token equals to create token, which is this function up here. It takes data, so in our case the data will be the edit user. Yeah, so we're good to go. We can now go ahead and say response.status is 201, which is created .json, and we need to pass the success true as well as the token. Notice if the success, let's just say data token. Save. Now let's do the login. Async login. Again, we're taking in the request and response. And then we need to call the login function from the auth service, right? So say const found user. Now if you come back here to the auth service, like it'll return true. It'll return an object with a success boolean. So if it's true, then we'll get the user. If it's false, then we'll get nothing. Right, so come back here to the controller. Found user is going to be equals to await auth service dot login. Now login takes in a username and password. So let's go ahead and destructure that. Username, password, username and password. Username and password here. And then now we need to check if that success is true or false, right? Say if found user dot success, if this is true, then that means our username and password were correct. So now you're going to say found user, found, we need to found user dot data, because the user is under data, remember, it's under data. We need to remove the password there, dot password is equals to null. And then the next thing we need to do, we need to create a token. Const token is equals to create token from found user dot data, right? This is the actual user without the password. And then let me just copy this. Why can't I copy, paste this here, but instead of 201 it's just going to be 200. Let me close the door, guys, there's construction going on outside. Right, cool. So we are done with the controller now. So now we need to export it by going module dot exports dot controller. We need to select everything. You know what, let me just select everything and then format it properly. Save. Now we need to import it here under its index. Auth controller is equals to require. Save that. Sorry, you need to also module dot exports auth controller. Format everything properly. Save. Great. Now we need to look at routes now. If you come here to the index of it, this is what we will import in this file, right? So we need const router. We're gonna require that from Express. Dot router. And then I haven't created the auth routes yet, but here I'm just gonna bring it in anyway. Auth auth is going to require, we need to require auth routes. Then we need to say module dot exports. Now we're exporting a function here. Right, so we need to say router dot use. So if a user goes to the auth route, then they'll be taken to these routes here. So like this. I'm just gonna format everything nicely. Save. Now we're gonna get an error because we don't have this route here. Or are we? Oh, okay. I guess it's because we're not using this file here yet, so there's no error. So let's go ahead and create our auth routes now, and yeah, it should be pretty simple. So again, we need to get the router from Express. Router, and we need our controller now. Const, remember we called it auth controller. It should be under controllers, and we need a new instance of it. Const auth controller is equals to new. Right, cool. So now we need to define our routes in our module.exports. So let's first do login. It's going to be post, and it's going to be under login, and the function that we want to run there is auth controller dot login. That's it. Or also we need to do register router dot post register path auth controller dot register, and then we need to return our router. Copy everything and just format it nicely. Come here, we need to return our router here as well. Save. Now, last thing that we need to do, we need to import the routes to the app, to the routes to the app. Yeah. So let's go ahead and import that. Const, I'm just gonna call this v1 routes is equals to require, no, it should be API version 1 routes. Right, so now we need to use these routes here. So say app.use. So if a user goes to API version 1, then we want to use the v1 routes, and let's format everything nicely here. Let's save, and hopefully everything works, because I don't like debugging. Yep, it's working. So now let's go ahead and test the application. So it's running under localhost 5000, and yeah, it should be /API /v1, and once we hit these routes here, the v1 routes, we wanna go to /auth, which will then use the auth routes here. Then we can then hit the register or hit the login or register endpoint. So we need to say auth /register. Now we need to create a body. Let me just bring this here. We need to create a body which is going to be raw JSON, and the body has a username. Let me call this Civiwe, and a password. One, two, three, four, 5, and a gender. Let's go ahead and it should be post. Let's try registering a user and see what we get. Shouldn't take this long. Right, so here's the issue here. I found the issue. We need to make this a function because remember the routes are a function. So we needed just this bit here. Save. Now let's try again. Register, and it's under 5,000. It's a post request. Let's do the body. ABCD, gender, mail. So let's go ahead and hit register and see if everything works. Cool. So we are getting this token here, and if I go and open, let's open this token and see what data is inside. Paste it, and you see the username is Civiwe, the password is null, the gender is male. So our API is working. Let's try to register again using the same username, and we are getting a 409 conflict. Username already exists. So let's try register using another gender that is not defined in the enum. Okay, let me just put one here. What's the error now? Okay, we will fix this in the coming video because this is a long video already. So let's cancel. Let's try logging in. Yeah, log in. Let's remove this. CV one. Let's try logging in and see what happens here. We are getting another error again. Success of undefined. Cannot read property. Success of undefined. So there's an issue with the login. Username, password, found user, auth service. So success of undefined. User is not defined. Auth service login, username, password. So user, so that we pass the user in auth service. Okay, let's do some quick debugging together here, guys. So let's see what's wrong here. Let's console.log found user and see what's inside. So let's hit the login again. So it's in auth controller 921. It's undefined. Undefined. So meaning there's an issue here. Okay. So guys, this is part of software development. You will be debugging a lot, and I'm glad that we found this bug here in the video. And another thing, guys, my videos, I try to not script them, so that you will have the experience of debugging. So return, it's not getting in here. Oh, console.error. Yes, let's see if that will work. So let's go ahead and try to log in. Let's see, found user, undefined still. Maybe user await this dot user dot find one, where the username is equals to the username passed. Let me see. Finding the user. Is password correct? Taking the password of this user. The username. Okay, let me console.log the user then. User. Let's see if we do get the user. It's loading. It's connected. The network is really slow, guys. I'm not sure if it's the network or what. All right, you know what? Let me try to figure this out, and then I'll continue the video. All right, so guys, I found the issue. So go back to the auth service. First of all, I wanna solve this issue here. We've got this bug here, cannot read property password of null. Now the issue is here. So when a user provides the username and password, this can either be a user or null. Like if the username does not exist, then this is gonna be null. So we might have to use this there's a function here. Check username exists. So we first need to check if the username exists before calling the service. And another thing I did here in the login, I added a try and a catch. So let's just do the same thing for the body here. Try and catch. And everything needs to go under try, and then under catch, no, this is going to be 500 internal server error, and dot message. I'm just gonna copy this, paste it under register, and format everything. Right, so let me just explain this one more time. So when a user provides their username and password, this line of code will attempt to get that user with the user that has the same username, and it's either going to be null or it's going to be the actual schema. Now here on line 26, we're trying to use this user. We are attempting to get the password of that user, and like if the username is incorrect, then this user is going to be undefined or null, right? So this is going to cause issues like we have here, cannot read property password of null because I provided an incorrect username here. So we need to before calling this function in our controller, I'm just gonna do the same thing I did here. Alright, so I'm gonna have this if block, where do I go? Yeah, here. So I'm gonna have this if block, and then put everything in here. Let me just put an else as well. Check username exists. So if the username exists, then we want to go ahead and try to log in the user. If the username does not exist, I just want to do the same thing here, because we don't want to tell the user that this username does not exist, because that can be a vulnerability. So we're just going to do the same thing. Email or password is incorrect. Let's go ahead and save, and let me try to register one more time and see if gender male. So the username is severe1, the password is abcd, and now we are not logging in, we are registering. Register, hit send, it's working. Let's try to register again using the same username. Username already exists. I'm not sure why this is not working. Let me put CV2 here and put a undefined gender. Oh, now it's working. You see, user validation failed. Gender Malek is not a valid gender, so let's put it back to male. Now let's try to log in. Now if we log in, email or password is incorrect. Didn't we just register? Let me try severe1. I think we registered with severe1. Oh yeah, now we are getting the token back. If I change the password to AB, now we don't need this anymore for logging in. If I change the password to ABC, try to log in, it's not correct. ABCD, put back the D, and let me just put a random username, one that does not exist. Right, so it looks like the API is working, and I know that it was a very long video, but guys, trust me, if like you really invest your time and watch the video, see that it's really worth it. And this is the folder structure. Yeah, like I think this is well structured, but let me know in the comment section if like you've tried some other design patterns, and yeah, let's have a discussion about that. Please share the video, please hit the subscribe button, hit the like button, and stay tuned for the next video. Cheers.